Good. So, can you see me, everybody? Can you? Good. So, yes, last night we began this story from the White Lotus Sutra, which Bhante has a commentary on in this book called The Drama of Cosmic Enlightenment. To be honest, I'm not sure whether it's still available in this separate edition, but it's part of the complete works. Either way, it's really worth reading and revisiting. In this story, Bhante unpacks, comments on, draws out parables and stories, myths from the White Lotus Sutra, which is, of course, a central Mahayana sutra, and whose content is not primarily conceptual. It's primarily through story and image and metaphor that the White Lotus Sutra speaks to us. And Bhante himself, I think, is very much, well, Vishwapani's been recently pointing out, he's a thinker who thinks in images. Obviously, Bhante is teaches in terms of concepts and incredibly clearly. But I think Bhante is somebody who's very aware, acutely aware of the limitations of the rational mind, of concepts, of words themselves. And pretty much every time Bhante gives a talk, there'll be some conceptual input, but there'll also be an image that not only sort of illustrates the concepts, but takes them further, deeper, into an imaginal realm. And the imaginal realm, or the imaginal faculty, as Bhante terms it, is not a nice add-on, extra colourful thing. It is colourful and enlivening, but it's not just that. He thinks of the imaginal faculty as being the whole of our being brought together in a synthesized way. Reason, emotion, will, the depths and heights of our consciousness integrated into a faculty that is the total response of the human being. And it's that faculty, you could call it Shraddha, but I quite like Bhante bringing it together is in terms of the imagination. It's that faculty that will apprehend reality. It's that faculty that will see things as they really are, that will see with the eyes of wisdom. Because reality goes beyond conceptual grasp. And if we didn't have another faculty, another way of knowing, if reason was our only way of knowing, we would we would end up with metaphysics or some clever philosophical interpretation, but that wouldn't be insight. It wouldn't be transformative. So we need right view, which is clear thinking and understanding what the Buddha taught, but we also need to involve the heart, the emotion, the imagination, our will, and deeper aspects of the psyche that aren't open to the rational mind. Yeah, if the rational mind was able to move us and motivate us, well, I don't know, I'd be a lot further along the path than I am. Yeah, my rational faculty long ago knew that Buddhism was true, or intuited that it was true, if the rational faculty can intuit anything. Anyway, it knew, I'm convinced, that's what I'm trying to say. But there are still aspects of my psyche, particularly first thing in the morning, that aren't on board. And it's like they've never heard of the Dharma. They've never heard of the power of meditation and the transformative effect of that and how great it is to do that. So my emotions, my will, and I don't think I'm alone in this, lag behind my intellectual kind of understanding. And Bhante has said that for most people, the main task of the Dharma life is to find emotional equivalents to our intellectual understanding. And stories and myths have a particular resonance with the deeper aspects of our psyche. And the story that I am exploring both last night and I'm going to continue today is the myth of the return journey from this White Lotus Sutra, which, as I was saying yesterday, seemed to speak to me several decades ago when I first came across it, when I first read it, and it still speaks to me, and it keeps revealing its symbolism, its resonances to me each time I look at it. You'll have to forgive me. I don't seem to plan my talks, so I don't seem to be able to. So I'm not completely sure what I'm going to say about the story. I've got the story, and then we'll see what emerges. But yesterday, what I was saying about the story, I'll give a little recap of the story. So the story is very simple so far. Well, it's a very simple story. There's a young man who has a father. The young man, the son, leaves home, strays away from home, and loses himself in wandering. Maybe he went to seek his fortune. He doesn't manage to gather a fortune. He's a pauper. He lives in poverty. In fact, he's forgotten who his father really is, and is just wandering the world, wandering through different lands as a beggar, as a pauper. Meanwhile, his father grows rich through whatever business he does. He becomes an incredibly wealthy, successful, and respected man who never forgets his son, but his son has forgotten who his father is. His son doesn't even realize that actually he's now the heir to all these riches. He's the inheritor of all this wealth. And one day, the father also moves around, we're told, but one day they find themselves in the same city, in the same town, and the father is sitting outside this palatial residence with his sort of servants and entourage, and just playing, as it were, exalting in the riches. Perhaps it's kind of a grotesque image for us, but you have to remember jewels and gold and riches are a symbol for spiritual inner riches. And he's just playing with these jewels and gold, and it's not meant to be a symbol of greed and acquisitiveness. It's meant to be a symbol for exuberant, joyous play. It's like, I've forgotten who it is. It might be, it's somebody in the Kagyu lineage. It might be Naropa, who is brought some gold. Somebody will correct me. A bag of gold, because when you go for tantric initiation, you have to present cash, and in medieval Tibet, that was gold, and his disciple or would-be disciple presents him with this bag of gold dust, the most precious thing that could be found. And I think it's Naropa, and I could be wrong, and somebody will correct me, takes the gold and scoops up this gold dust and then just flings it into the air, where it catches the sunlight and rains down, glittering in this vast, beautiful cloud of showering gold. And it's that sort of exuberance that this wealthy father is meant to symbolize. It's not an acquisitive thing. It's look at these riches. The bodhisattvas are said to just play in conditioned existence. There's just this exuberant delight at phenomena and the wonder of existence, and they play. The game that they play is, are we all right there? The game that they play is one of wanting to alleviate suffering. One of wanting to help alleviate suffering for others. It's a game of compassion, but it is a game. It's said to be a game, not a... you know how when we look at suffering, we can get overwhelmed, and there's a lot of opportunity to get overwhelmed in the world at the moment. Maybe there always was. It's just that our world is where so much information and news is available to us that feels very dark at times, and it's easy to get overwhelmed. The Bodhisattva doesn't get overwhelmed because the Bodhisattva doesn't ultimately take this conditioned existence as real, as ultimately real. It's relatively real. There is suffering, and there is a deeper, higher reality that the Bodhisattva is always in touch with. And in comparison to that higher or deeper, truer existence, this world is more like a dream. And at times it can be nightmarish, but the Bodhisattva isn't fooled by sense experience and this conditioned world. It doesn't take it as absolutely real compared to the riches that the Bodhisattva is in touch with, reality itself. And so he can play, or she can play, in this conditioned world, even though there's suffering, and the game is to help alleviate suffering by helping people to wake up, to help people wake up from their dream. Some people are having a good dream and some people are having a nightmare, but either way it's a dream. It's mind-made. Buddhism insists on mind being more fundamental than this material stuff. Mind is well, particularly in the Yogacara school, mind is the foundation of all experience. Anyway, the rich man, is just delighting in his wealth. The son passes by the mansion, by this palatial residence, and is immediately not excited, doesn't recognize his father, doesn't think, oh great, I can maybe get a job here. He doesn't do that. His response is fear. His response to all this exuberant wealth is somebody will try and enslave me. This is a powerful man, and I will be entrapped in some way. And I talked yesterday about how Bhante talks about fear when we encounter reality. It's not sometimes the dark that we're afraid of, it's the light. Sometimes we're afraid of our own positivity and capacity. Bhante keeps insisting that we're more than we think we are, and sometimes we're afraid of our own potential. This story is all about how potentially we are enlightened. We have the seed of enlightenment already there. The son is already, as it were, the heir to these riches, although he doesn't know it. And his response is fear. And yesterday I was talking about how Bhante talks about at the moment of death, there's an opportunity to wake up, and most of us, at least last time, didn't wake up. If you did wake up, tell me. If you've come here as a bodhisattva voluntarily to help alleviate suffering, well, you can take over this talk in a way. What are you doing here anyway? But most of us probably, we didn't wake up last time. And that is because we didn't recognize the light of reality, and we shrank back. Bhante calls it a sort of alienation from our true nature. And we shrank back and we chose, maybe not chose, maybe we felt compelled, were compelled to take on another body and another life. And miss this opportunity that the Bardo is said to give us. So next time round, partly we practice for that point of death. Of course we can wake up in this life, but death is inevitable, and it is a real opportunity according to the Dharma. And the Bardo Tadol sort of particularly exploitates that opportunity in a beautiful way. And Vajrasattva, who's a figure from the Tantra, yesterday we had Vajrasattva on the shrine, and Vajrasattva, well, last night we chanted his mantra, the long 100-syllable mantra, and the mantra in itself tells the story of alienation from reality, alienation from Vajrasattva, turning into a realization that we were always Vajrasattva, that Vajrasattva was our deepest true nature. The mantra starts off with us as the sort of sun in the story, calling on Vajrasattva to stand by us, to be pleased for us, to protect us, to purify our own sullied and soiled consciousness. And then at some point in the mantra where you get the laughter, the 5-syllable laughter, ha 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 ho, that's meant to be the realization that we were never impure in the first place. That we were always, in the depths of consciousness, we were always pure. And that purity isn't to do with skillful and unskillful, good and bad. It's to do with a primeval purity that is to do with shunyata. It's to do with the fact that there never was a fixed and separate essence to us. There never was. We don't exist in the way that we think we do. We exist, if existence is the right word, which it isn't, we exist in a far more wonderful way than we think we do. We are far bigger and more wonderful than we think we are. The only reason that we're not in touch with the depths of our consciousness is that we get distracted and we get attached to sense experience, and we identify, we create stories where we're lesser than we are, and that's partly through identifying with our physical body and our physical senses. We take that for reality. And what I was saying yesterday is that the deepest part of consciousness isn't in this physical realm. And you can experience that in meditation. You've probably experienced in meditation feeling more spacious, more expanded, more connected. That is a clue to what unbounded consciousness is like. Unbounded consciousness is said to be there's no boundary between self and world or self and other. So there's no sense of separation. This is a universal consciousness that you could say includes everything and everyone. The natural response of unbounded consciousness is metta. And when metta meets suffering, it turns to compassion. That's who we really are. The myth of Vajrasattva, the sadhana of Vajrasattva, dramatizes that. In the sadhana, you start off separate with Vajrasattva above your head, and nectar pulls down onto your head, into your body, filling you up, white nectar, as you chant his mantra. And then at some point you're completely purified and you're lifted up, and not just you but all beings are lifted up, and each being becomes this a Vajrasattva. And none of the Vajrasattvas are really separate. It's this beautiful image of how the world really is, reality really is, beyond our senses. And you don't have to think too hard to know that the senses, our senses, don't reveal reality as it really is. Our senses have evolved in us, sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and our rational mind have evolved in us in order to survive, in order for the organism to survive. So for example, we know that our eyes only see a certain bandwidth in the full spectrum of electromagnetic radiation. We see a certain narrow band. We don't see X-rays. We don't see infrared light. We don't see ultraviolet. Our hearing is limited to a certain range. We don't hear things that dogs do, let alone bats who navigate by sonar. They live in a very different world because they have different apparatus, sense apparatus. You know, we don't live in a world where we can detect the Earth's magnetic field, but we know it's there. And guess what? Birds migrate using navigation based on the Earth's magnetic field. There's so much of the cosmos, of the universe, that our senses don't pick up. And even the bits that they do pick up are constructed when I see a colour like red or orange or all the colours that I can see now. Colours don't exist objectively out there in the world. Something does, but the experience of red is a construct that's happening partly from whatever strikes my eye, but also it's partly to do with the structure of my eyes and the structure of my mind. So the world is not as it appears to be. Reality is not what it seems, as Carlo Rovelli said, and he's a contemporary physicist. So we know that our senses don't tell the truth, but we get fooled by it, yeah? And then we close ourselves to our potential. So the father in the story represents our true potential. The son is fearful of his true potential. In fact, he swoons, he faints, and the father sends after him some men to reassure him. But also, and this is where we'll pick up the story, what the servants of the father do is they offer the young man employment. It's as if the father realizes that he can't reveal the truth to his son all in one go, because who is it in A Few Good Men says, you can't handle the truth. The son wouldn't be able to handle the truth. The truth is, well, Bhante says that it's shattering. When you encounter the truth, if you are very identified with your small sense of self, this body and the normal mind, it will be shattering to you, liberating in potential, but also all our assumptions about who we are and what reality is shattered. So the son isn't ready for that, and maybe we're not ready for that. We have to, well, Bhante's given us a system of practice, which is very traditional, by the way. It's not just a Triratna invention. All Buddhist traditions have some sort of system of practice based on these sorts of principles that we have. But what Bhante is saying is that you need to be integrated and emotionally positive and receptive before you can sufficiently integrated, sufficiently emotionally positive, sufficiently receptive to something beyond your ken before you can handle the truth. Yeah? You have to sort of prepare for that. So what the father does is he says, let me employ my son. That way, at least he's close to me. He's not going to go wandering. And he offers him double wages to entice him. And the job that he's given is to clear away a huge mound of dirt. Wonderful image, this huge heap of dirt. And he has to just shovel it and clear it away. It's sort of outside in the grounds of the palatial residence that the father lives in. And while he's shoveling dirt, he's given a little hovel or a hut to live in, because actually he wouldn't feel comfortable in a palatial room. So he's given a little hut which is more familiar to him. And he lives in this hut and he shovels the dirt. And he shovels the dirt not just for a day or two or a week or two, but for 20 years. It's said to be that he shovels and shovels and shovels and shovels. So this is a wonderful image. I mean, the writers, whoever wrote these images or came up with these stories, they're so acutely aware of not just the path and the goal, but the human psyche. You know, years before Freud and psychoanalysis, and this image of shoveling the dirt, Bhante says, is such a good image for, you could say, purifying and integrating our own minds, dealing with all our neuroses and quirks, that attachments, neuroses are gripping onto our ill will, are gripping onto a narrow sense of self, and all the unconscious biases and habits that we have that keep us from our heart opening into love, into metta. There's so much that we are not aware of, and modern psychology will testify to that you have to, as it were, purify, bring into the light of awareness, integrate. So this shoveling the dirt, you could say, is a symbol for that purification and integration of mind before the light of reality can be seen without shrinking away. It's too dazzling, it's too bright. It is like staring at the sun. We couldn't do it, we can't do it. We'd be burnt. So he's clearing away the dirt. I was thinking, as well as this sort of psychological integration, Bhante talks about vertical integration as well as horizontal integration. The integration that's horizontal is just getting to know our conscious mind, which is often rather split. Bhante says it's like we're a bundle of, rather than a sort of full human being, we're a bundle of different desires and volitions. One person at 6:30 in the morning, another person at noon, another person at supper time, or one person with our work colleagues, and another person with our university friends, and another person with our mother. Where these kind of different selves, loosely tied with a name and an address. So that conscious integration is trying to bring together these different selves so that we are an individual, the same person in all circumstances. Bhante seemed to be at home wherever he was, be that in India or in Britain or with whoever he was. Bhante met, he met Nehru when, and film stars and princes and as well as the poorest of the poor in India, as well as intellectuals, and taught at Yale and founded this Buddhist movement, which is international, and it was always the same Bhante. Those of you who met him will know that there was this quality of awareness, of mindfulness, of care about him that was the same wherever he went. You can sort of even pick that up in his writing, in his memoirs particularly, this evenness. So that's kind of horizontal integration. Vertical integration is the unconscious being brought into awareness, as well as the supraconscious or superconscious, what we can access in dhyana, in higher mental states, being integrated and brought into awareness. It's the heights and the depths of our psyche. And meditation is really key for that. Well, it's key for everything, but particularly if we want to experience the heights of consciousness. Anyway, so clearing away the dirt is, I think, a symbol for all of that. It can also, I think, be a symbol for serving without status, without sort of expectation of reward. I mean, the man is being paid double wages, so that's good. But there's no status, is there, in clearing away the dirt? It's the lowliest of jobs. I know when I left, I used to work in IT in a corporate, well, I used to work for Marks and Spencer's, as some of you know, I did that for about 10 years. And by the time I left, I was in a relatively senior position, not right at the top by any means, but I was in a highly paid, relatively senior. I was an internal consultant for, and responsible for the systems architecture of Marks and Spencer's in some ways. I left to work at the London Buddhist Centre. And the job that was on offer that they gave me, Ratnagosha gave me, was as fundraiser. And I said to him, look, if I was employing a fundraiser, I wouldn't employ me. And they wanted me to work there. And they had no money to employ me. So the fundraiser post was created because they didn't have any money. We needed money to... So my job was partly to raise my own support so that I could be there. I was also asked to raise more money than that, which was used for the first iteration of Vajrasana. Those of you who've been to Vajrasana, before this beautiful Vajrasana, there was just the farmhouse and a few outbuildings, but that was enabled by, well, not by my fundraising entirely, but that's what I was fundraising for. Anyway, the point is that I was completely out of my depth. I felt completely de-skilled. I was used to designing corporate systems, supply chain systems and so forth. I wasn't used to asking people for money. I couldn't do it. I felt too embarrassed, too shy, too presumptuous, particularly to ask order members for money. It felt like, who am I to ask you for money? So I just started, I just had to, I don't know what I did actually. I wrote a few thank you letters, and it was humbling. It was humbling to be de-skilled and then working in a way that made, I don't know, I was just, anyway, I carried on, and then I became the treasurer. And I was rubbish at that. I didn't know anything about finance, really. I blagged my way for a while until the first audit happened. And the accountants phoned up and said, could I fax over a balance sheet? We had faxes in those days. And I said, yes, of course. What does a balance sheet look like? And where do I find one? I couldn't blag forever. Anyway, I did all of that for about 5 years. And it did me good. It really did me good. It did me good to move from this high status job to something that I wasn't very good at, but an environment that I wanted to serve. And fortunately, the LBC Ratnagosha put up with my incompetence, and it did me good. And I think there's something about working for the movement where you don't, even if you're the chair of a centre like Ketaraju is, or the Mitra convener like Amarachandra and Arta Siddhi, it's not high status. Well, you don't get very much money, do you? You get a lot of responsibility, and mostly people don't like it when you don't live up to their expectations or you get things wrong. Yeah? You get a lot of flack. And you have to do it out of love, not because you get any real kind of recognition. You don't get a company car. You don't get any of that. You have to do it out of service and love for helping spread the Dharma. And in doing so, I think there's a purification that happens. There's a purification of heart and mind, a purification of motive that happens. So I see this son shoveling dirt as partly that sort of purification as well, as sort of serving, clearing away the dirt. The father is, apparently he can see his son working from his window, and he kind of is pained by the fact that that's what his son is doing, but can't do very much about it. What he does is occasionally goes down to his son and says, look, I can give you everything you need. If you need new clothes, just ask. If you need, we can provide you with better food. And, he just treats him well, but at a level that the son can understand and grasp and not be intimidated by. So I think that's, I don't know, it's just a very acutely observed story about our psychology and how we are not up to recognizing our true nature. Then what happens in the story is that the father falls sick, and he says to the son, look, I need you to take over managing all my affairs, all my business affairs and financial affairs, and I need you to help me do that. So he starts to invite the son into the palace, into the house, and gets him used to handling these riches. But he still doesn't, the son is still sort of alienated in that he doesn't realize they're his own. But he's now a bit closer to this union, this non-separation, by at least handling the gold and the silver and the jewels on behalf of his father. And Bhante says that this is a bit like, I don't know, it's a bit like a theistic, if you were practicing within a theistic religion, if you're practicing in a where there's a God, in a religion where there's a creator God, you can never become God. You can worship, you can serve, you can become a servant, yes, of God, but you can't become God. And Bhante says it's a bit like that, the son serving his father and handling the riches, but not realizing that they're his own. In Buddhism, of course, you become a Buddha. The point is, particularly in the Mahayana, you become a Buddha. You become a fully enlightened Buddha to serve, as a force of wisdom and compassion in the world. You become a fully enlightened Buddha, which would be heretical in a theistic. The equivalent would be somebody saying, I am God, and then bad things tend to happen. Yeah, if you're in a theistic tradition. So in a theistic tradition, you have this enforced separation. And what Bhante is saying is that is a stage, it's a valid stage in spiritual development. In Buddhism, for example, when you're ordained, you are given a sadhana practice where you have a yidam, who is an archetypal Buddha or Bodhisattva, that you imagine, visualize, feel the presence of in meditation, outside of meditation. They become a symbol of enlightenment for you. And usually there's a sort of drama in the sadhana where you receive blessings and teachings and so forth from the figure. But ultimately, what happens in some sadhanas explicitly, in all sadhanas implicitly, is that there's a union between you and the figure. It's like you become the Buddha or Bodhisattva. Yeah, you realize that the Buddha or Bodhisattva is an image for your true nature, for the nature of your mind, the deepest nature of your own mind. So sadhana is a way of dramatizing the closing of the gap between you and enlightenment. You imagine enlightenment, you worship enlightenment, embodied in a personified image. You get teachings and blessings, but by the end of the sadhana, the gap closes. And it's a wisdom practice. Sometimes order members don't quite give enough emphasis to that what's the word? That integration, that coming together. And they stay, it's easy to stay in a sort of position of just worship, which is not bad, because worshipping a Buddha or a Bodhisattva is beautiful and good. But you're still, if you're doing that, you're still thinking of the Buddha or Bodhisattva as other than you, as outside of you. Ultimately, what we have to realize is that there's a non-difference. And when you start seeing, Bhante says that when you start seeing the Yidam as your higher self, as you at your highest potential, not different to you, he says strange things start to happen. He doesn't go into what strange things. You'll have to do it yourself. And if you're not ordained, your sadhana is an adventure. Honestly, sometimes people say, why should I get ordained? Because, it just means hassle, doesn't it? And then, you know, it just... if only I could sort of show you, if you're not ordained, how beautiful the practices that you're given, particularly sadhana. My sadhanas are some of the most precious gifts in my life, and I feel incredibly grateful. Well, they're not just meditation practices. Bhante, in his commentary, talks about you can, if you want to, think in terms of guardian angels, of beings who are blessing and protecting you. And it's like in sadhana, you're given an image for that. And it's true, it's not fantasy. It's like there are forces in reality, forces of enlightenment, that if you open up to, they reach down to you. And then ultimately you realize that those forces in reality of enlightenment are not different to your own true nature. That I am in our deepest aspect of consciousness, an enlightened being. Yeah, this is a kind of wonderful teaching. Now it comes with a health warning. Bhante doesn't what's the word? He doesn't use this language of Buddha nature, as it's sometimes called, deliberately. He doesn't like this language of Buddha nature because it's so easy to take that literally. It's so easy to think that, I don't know if people really do think this, but that it's so easy to think, oh, I'm already enlightened, so I don't have to do any effort, make any effort. Yeah, I don't have to do anything because I'm already there. I think you do sort of meet sometimes people, at least on YouTube, you meet people like that. I think they just exist in some sort of YouTube place where you get these people who say that they're already enlightened and they don't have to do anything. There's no effort to be made. Yeah. So Bhante would prefer us to think in terms of the potential for enlightenment is within us. We are potentially Buddhas. Yeah? But that potential, like a seed, needs to be nurtured and activated and grown. And to do that does take effort, which is another symbol for this clearing away of the dirt. The sun is always the true heir to these riches, but he's not ready yet. He has to make an effort to get himself ready, his consciousness ready, to realize the true nature of his own existence. And that getting ready takes effort. You cannot dispense with the path of development. That's how I take this shoveling the earth, the dirt. Yeah, it's the path of development. Even though, from another perspective, from a higher perspective, you could say that there was no need to shovel all that dirt, because he was already enlightened. Yeah? Bhante says, look, there's a paradox here. It's like you need to travel the path of ethics, meditation, wisdom, friendship, service. You need to, and that takes effort. You need to follow this path, but at the end of the path, it doesn't lead to the goal. It doesn't lead anywhere, he says. Yeah, the path has to be followed, and it doesn't lead anywhere. Yesterday, I was talking in an image. I talked about. I was trying to illustrate that enlightenment is outside of time and space. And I talked about this flat land as an image that said, look, imagine we exist just on a two-dimensional surface as two-dimensional beings that don't realize there's a higher spatial dimension called up. Now, that third spatial dimension was an analogy for a dimension that isn't in space or isn't in time at all. There is a dimension of reality beyond this spatio-temporal conditioned existence that we are so familiar with. Yeah? So the path of Buddhism exists in, you could say, in that two-dimensional space. We have to walk that path. But the goal exists in a higher dimension. The path exists in time and space. Ethics exists in time and space, for example, and involves other people and so forth. The goal exists outside of time and space, and no amount of striving in time and space takes you nearer to eternity outside of time and space. Yeah? And yet, if you don't travel the path, you're not ready. You're not ready to take the leap into this other dimension, which is transcendental. Yeah? Beyond time and space, beyond the dualism of me and you, separate, subject and object, self and other. Beyond that dualism, there is a true dimension, and you have to take a leap into that. And it's an imaginative leap. You could say it's an intuitive leap, but it's an imaginative leap. Imagination in the sense that I talked about. And it will take courage, because when you leap, you don't know where you'll end up. Yeah, it's a bit like, imagine leaping from a cliff top, and you don't. Yeah, you have to, as it were, be prepared to lose everything, including your life. You leap from the top of a cliff. What happens is that you leap into the void, and the void doesn't have a ground. There's no ground that you'll hit. It's an infinite expanse of space, except it's not in space. It's an infinite expanse. The blue sky is said to be a symbol for that. If you have to have a metaphor, which we do in spatial terms, it's an infinite expanse of the blue sky, and you leap, sort of giving everything up, and in that leaping, well, it'll take courage and faith, and in that leap, you become free. And you don't fall, because there's nowhere to fall. Instead, you find yourself flying. Yeah? And that's exhilarating, it's blissful, it's ecstatic, it's free. So that leap requires all the preparation of the path. Yeah? Even though that blue sky is the true nature of our own mind, it's closer to us than anything else. It's closer to us than anything else. It's the true nature of every moment. It's true. Yeah? Every moment you could leap if you wanted to. Well, wanted to is not the right word. If you were able to. Yeah? So enlightenment is there in potential in every moment. It's very optimistic. Like the son could wake up at any moment and recognize that he's the heir to his father. Yeah? So he hands over his affairs, and he manages to go into the house, the son, and I don't know, gets used to going into the house. And what that does is it gives him more confidence. It gives him a sense that it's okay. Don't worry about that. Stay with me. That it's okay to handle these riches. It's okay to walk into this palatial residence. It's okay to he's worthy of stepping into this house and being close to this rich, wealthy man. And you could say that confidence is also Shraddha. You can't take the leap without Shraddha. We have to develop confidence in our own potential. And you do that probably gradually. It's very unlikely that we come to the Dharma and we're fully formed in that way. You do that gradually. You practice and you gradually develop confidence in the practice. You meet people in the Sangha and you gradually develop confidence that it works. You, as it were, learn more about the Buddha and gradually develop faith in enlightenment in the Buddha. It takes years. The man, it doesn't say how long he goes in and out of the house, but you can imagine this story is it trying to illustrate something outside of time. So it's using time and this sort of linear temporal thing as a metaphor. So it could be forever that he goes inside and outside the house. It's a stage of his spiritual development. It's interesting when you're trying to illustrate something that doesn't exist in time, but we have to use either time or space as illustration, as metaphors. So you could say the sun was always enlightened from beginningless time. Because its enlightenment isn't in time, so you can use the past. If you have to use the notion of time, you could say it was in the distant past that he became enlightened. Or you could use the future, and you could say he's got the potential to become enlightened. Or you could use the metaphor of the present and say in every moment he's the heir to this fortune. Do you see what I mean? The story is trying to use temporal metaphors for something that isn't in time, and it's quite sophisticated how it's doing that. That he is always heir to the rich man, and he doesn't realize it, and then he has to go on a journey in order to realize it. Eventually, the father knows that he's going to die. The father, that is, he's going to die, and what he does is he summons all his courtiers, the people of the land, the sort of rulers of all the surrounding land together, and he says that I have not got long to live now, and I hand over all my riches to this young man who is my son. He reveals the full truth, and at that point there's as it were the full realization. In the Vajrasattva mantra, it's the laughter of the enlightened mind. The son doesn't literally go ha 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 ho, but that laughter is meant to illustrate this separation being overcome. The separation is finally overcome when the father dies. And of course the father doesn't really die. What Bante's pointing out, that what's happening here is that the son becomes the father, that there's a union. The son becomes enlightened. If the father is the enlightened, the image of the enlightened mind, the son becomes one with the enlightened mind. In terms of the story, you can't do that, and so what has to happen is that the father dies and the son inherits all the riches. Yeah. So this beautiful, I think, parable, which feels to me timeless, very simple and timeless, is trying to illustrate something about our true nature. It's trying to illustrate something about how we're ignorant about our true nature. It's trying to illustrate that in order to realize our true nature, you have to follow a path, that path will take effort. So there's this path of development, self-development, but it's also trying to illustrate that that path, in a sense, doesn't go anywhere. Yeah? Because the truth was always there. The truth was always there. It's just we weren't ready to open our eyes to it. So then we need this path. You can't dispense with the path. There's a tendency in some spiritual circles, particularly in neo-Advaita, non-dual, modern non-dual, Western non-dual teachers. Have you come across any modern Western non-dual teaching? There's a tendency to say that you can do away with the path, yeah, because you're already enlightened. So all you have to do is realize that, yeah, and there's no point in doing anything, because doing things is just tightening your sense of self, yeah. Buddhism's very different to that. Buddhism's saying no. If you really want to gain insight, it's not just an intellectual realization. Sometimes those neo-Advaita teachings, non-dual teachings, become very intellectual, very heady, very sort of metaphysical. And sometimes I think people just stay at that level, intellectually convinced that they are already in non-dual awareness, enlightened, whereas their actions, their behavior remains untransformed. You need a path of transformation. You need a path of transformation. Bhante is very, very clear about that. This, you know, yesterday I was talking about these 4 myths. This is the myth of development. You also need a path of service. I think the path of development and self-effort, there's a danger that it becomes too much about me. There's also a danger that it can become disheartening. Shoveling dirt for 20 years, yeah, you can start to feel, I'll never do it. I'll never do it, particularly if you lack self-esteem, if you're low on self-confidence, you can start to think, I can't get enlightened. Others can, maybe, but not me. If they really knew me, they you know, I'd never do it. I can remember when I was invited to be ordained, I kind of thought, oh dear, I really wanted to get ordained, and I was really pleased, and then I thought, oh dear, they've made a mistake. If they really knew me, they wouldn't have invited me. I was also a bit disappointed that if the order was willing to have me, then the order wasn't this wonderful thing that I thought it was. Yeah, I thought the order was better than that. So, if one lacks self-confidence, the path of development can feel like, oh, I can never do it. The path of surrender is the path, it's the religious path of worship, of service. And for me, that really spoke to me. I might not be able to gain enlightenment, but I could serve. I could serve. I could be the fundraiser. I could be the treasurer. I could be the bookkeeper. I could help. I could help the order spread the Dharma. And that, I still respond to that. I tend to shy away from taking responsibility because I'm lazy. I'm bone idle, given a chance. And the reason that I'm not just a swamp creature is that I've been asked to serve, and something in me wants to serve. Yeah. So when I became chair of the LBC, my heart sank at the thought that I was going to become chair of this centre. I wasn't pleased. In fact, I hated the thought. But I did want to serve, and because there was nobody else in a position to do it, and I was asked to do it, I stepped up to it. Actually, I just want to say something about our changing culture in Triratna. These days in Triratna, if you want to apply for a job, if there's a position, a vacancy, you have to apply. Yeah, you have to apply, and you have to maybe even have an interview. and so forth. Now I understand the kind of what's the word? The reasons. There are pros and cons. Personally, if I hadn't been asked to serve, I would never have applied. Yeah? I was asked to join the LBC and be the fundraiser. I didn't want to do it. I was asked to be the chair of the LBC. I didn't want to do it. I really didn't want to do it. I was asked to become a public preceptor. I really didn't want to do it. I really, really didn't want to do it. Yeah? And it took me about a year of deliberating and thinking, oh dear. You know, I can remember vividly, I was, Bhante had just died, and I'd just been on a long solitary retreat, a 6-month solitary retreat, and was feeling very inspired, very grateful for the Dharma, very grateful for all the gifts of the Dharma. And I was invited to go up to Adhisthana and spend some time with the then chair of the college, who was Sadhaloka. So I couldn't say no. I went up. I knew what he wanted. And he was very skillful, and he just said, look, how would you like to serve the order Jnanavaca? And I was like, oh, don't say that. You know, he said, well, you know, it'd be good if you join the college, but only if you want to, and, you know, no pressure. How would you like to serve? I was just thinking, no, please, not that. And then I was circumambulating Bhante's burial mound and chanting mantras in my own mind. And I did that for about a couple of hours one afternoon on my own. And something happened. Something happened. I felt Bhante's presence, I think. And it wasn't a conscious choice. It was like the choice had been made for me. So that's the other myth of surrender, where you give up your preferences, your inclinations for some cause, in this case serving the Dharma, which is the highest cause, I think. You give up your inclinations, your preferences to serve something higher. And that, I think, has been one of the most rewarding things in my life, to be part of serving Bhante's vision for Triratna, which is the most radical vision I've ever come across. So that is the myth of surrender. There's the myth of development, of self-effort. There's the myth of surrender, of service and opening up to something larger than oneself. And then there's this myth of discovering and allowing your true nature to emerge. Your own true nature is enlightenment, and that was always your nature. It was always there, whether you realized it or not. And all you had to do, as it were, was wake up to that. Those non-dual teachers aren't completely wrong. Where they're wrong is that they dismiss those other two myths. Without those other two myths, you can't wake up. And if you do wake up, in a way that isn't a genuine way, you can get deluded. You can think that you've woken up and you haven't. And then that's a real obstacle. If you think you're enlightened and you're not, you really are stuck. You're up the creek without a paddle. So this other myth that you have your potential is already that of an enlightened being is very, very valuable. It's very optimistic. It means that each of us can become a Buddha. There's nothing that stops us doing that. If we've got human consciousness, we've got that potential. And what's more, it can happen at any moment. You might think, oh, you know, it won't happen to me now in this lifetime. I've left it too late. It's not quite like that, because it's not in time. So it can happen at any moment. And that's very optimistic, that's wonderful. And there's something profoundly kind of true about that. When you encounter the depths of your own mind, it will feel apparently as if it was always there, as if Vajrasattva was always your true nature. It was always there, and you've just now realized it. And then if you've traveled the path of development and surrender, you're well placed to just open up to that. Open up to your true nature. So I think this parable, and not just this parable, well, this parable contains all of those myths, and it does so in a way that is quite sophisticated. It's showing the interplay between effort, surrender, service, and realizing our true nature. It's a very subtle kind of thing, and what that does is it prevents us taking any one of those literally. Yeah, shoveling the dirt can't be literally the way to gain enlightenment. Service of another being, even the Buddha, is still dualistic, so it can't literally be how things are. And our own true nature is beyond conceiving. So if you start to think you know what you mean by the nature of your own mind, then you've taken it too literally, then you've got it wrong. I once went to see Bhante, and I'd had some sort of I thought I'd had some sort of meditative realization, and I said, he was very anti this language of Buddha nature. The Tathagatagarbha is the Sanskrit term. He was very, very anti it because of the dangers. And I went to see him and I said, Bhante, Tathagatagarbha does seem to be true. And he smiled with that glint in his eye, and he said, yes, it does, doesn't it, Jnanavaca? And then he said, it's fine if you don't take it literally. If you don't take it literally. And I think what he means is that you have to remember that any concept, any way of talking about enlightenment is only an operational concept. It's only provisionally true. They're all pointers to something that is beyond our rational grasp. And yet, we need those pointers. We need those pointers to be able to have the faith to take that leap into the void. And it's only when you take the leap that it's said that all of that becomes clear in a way that goes beyond the rational mind, that is transcendent. And you hear the laughter of Vajrasattva. You are Vajrasattva. You become the embodiment of the enlightened mind. And there's no separation between you and the world. You wake up from the dream, and then the only thing to do is to help others do the same, which is what the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas represent. So have a look at this commentary. It's not just this myth. There are other parables in here which are gold. They're priceless. And if you're already familiar with it, I think we should just study this again and again, because there's riches in here that keep getting revealed. And I hope tonight I've managed to at least do something of that. So thank you very much.